From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the brand new Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important. Remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you're watching us on YouTube, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, get the bell notification. But when we drop that,
fire content.
Also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. And there's a lot more coming here if you're watching us on the Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network just in the next couple of months, so bear with us. All right, Andre, Wednesday, hot day, rainy day, typical New Orleans day in the city. They are finishing up their final week of OTAs with the New Orleans Saints. We'll have a chance to get out there on Thursday, so we will have that wrap up. But in the meantime, a couple things have come across our radar we're going to get into today. But first things first, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a lot better because I know on Monday we talked about LSU stressing us out and losing to Little Rock and forcing that game 3. But the Tigers, once again, stressed us out. They pulled it out, going to the Super Regionals. So I'm in a good mood this week.
I sensed a lot of excitement over that win. I'm sorry, I did not connect with that emotion. I felt relief, like, oh my goodness, they avoided disaster. Little Rock gave them, respect to Little Rock, they gave LSU all they can handle. It was a one-run game in the ninth inning. Yeah. And there was some panic from the fan base in that second inning when it went down to 5-1. But nonetheless, LSU did what Ole Miss couldn't do, what Vanderbilt couldn't do. They advanced to face West Virginia this weekend. So good luck to the Tigers. I actually think this is going to be a straighter path to get on the other side and get to Omaha. All right. First things first. A New Orleans son who has never played for the New Orleans Saints says, yeah, I'd be interested in playing for the Saints. And we're going to go there first, and we're going to get into the actual Saints players on the roster with a different segment next. But first things first, Leonard Fournette in the news with the big picture. Yeah,
former Jacksonville Jaguar, former LSU Tiger, former St. Aug star Leonard Fournette. He was asked recently, would he have interest in playing with the Saints? And he answered what you would expect somebody who grew up in the city would answer. He would love to play for the Saints. I'm sure he grew up watching the black and gold. I'm sure he fell in love with the sport of football watching the Saints. And, he grew up in the right time because me and him are around the same age. So we grew up, we missed the paper bag days. We caught the Drew Brees days. So it was a lot of fun times supporting the Saints when Leonard was growing up. But, with Leonard saying he would have a lot of interest in joining the Saints, Sean, should the Saints have interest in Leonard Fournette?
Let's talk Lenny, huh? I love Leonard Fournette. I think he was great when he was a player here for St. Aug. I thought he was awesome. Some viral moments before it was really like viral was a thing when he was a running back at LSU. I remember him just felt like he buried that Ole Miss defender that night at Tiger Stadium. I remember the Auburn game where dude's on his back. I just remember the simultaneous pancake blocks by Will Clapp and Ethan Posick. It was a beautiful thing. It really was. And I have absolutely no problem with Leonard Fournette wanting to keep the dream alive. And it's not some crazy idea. This guy was in the same draft class as Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. I think he's a year younger. I think Derrick Henry was the year before. Yeah. And he was one of the greatest high school football players to ever grace New Orleans gridiron. That's just what it is. If you were to put a Mount Rushmore of just their high school career, it'd be hard to leave Leonard Fournette off of that because I think he was that much of a game changer for St. Aug. I mentioned the draft class with Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. The unfortunate thing is he just hasn't aged like them. He unfortunately has now taken the path that most running backs take when they get closer and closer to 30. The skills start to diminish a little bit, and then you become a guy that's 30 years old. Still got some tread on the tire. There's no doubt about that. But obviously not on the main call or the radar of teams. He didn't play at all in 2024. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did not play at all in 2024. And according to the stats I saw, played in 2 games in 2023. So his last really productive season was actually 2021, 800 plus yards, 8 touchdowns. 2022 wasn't bad, 600 plus yards. But that was the final year of the Tom Brady era and his whole career, and really in Tampa as well. That was nothing seemed to be going right in Tampa that year. That was an ugly finish to a great career in Tom Brady, but that was really the last time he had significant contribution on the football field. So for all intents and purposes, Leonard Fournette hasn't played real significant football in 2 seasons. Yeah. He turned 30. He'll turn 31 in January, if I'm not mistaken. So if I were the Saints, and I saw, and I believe it was Jacques Doucet was the one that asked the question. Jacques Doucet out of WAP in Baton Rouge. It's our sister station up in Baton Rouge, but also Baton Rouge Connect. You know, we watched him in high school. They got him up close and personal at LSU, and you know how that goes. But my response to Leonard Fournette's wishes would simply be, thanks, we love you, we respect you, we appreciate your contribution to the city, but not at the moment can we pursue this option. Right now, if I'm the Saints, I want to get as many reps as possible with these young guys or the guys that are going to be your core, especially when training camp starts, because they're really not doing a whole lot right now when it comes to live drills for 11-on-11. Because the 7-on-7 stuff is great, but it's all passing stuff. So if I were the Saints, I would kind of keep him on my call list. Because, look, injuries are going to happen in the NFL. Injuries are definitely going to happen at that running back position, especially with the Saints' injury luck lately. There's going to be a significant injury at the running back position. Just hope it's not huge for the Saints. So I would keep Leonard Fournette on the call list if I needed him once the season started and he was still in shape. And I know with Leonard, sometimes you got to make sure he's on it because he's got to stay in shape to be as ready as possible when the phone call goes off or his phone rings. So you never know when that call could come, and that sucks for a guy that had such a marvelous career. It sucks for a guy that really is a household name here in New Orleans. But if I were him, stay in shape, stay ready. If I'm the Saints, if I need you, I will call. And that's not just the Saints. That could be anybody. And hopefully somebody will give him an opportunity at some point. I didn't realize he was out of football at all last year. He didn't play one snap, was not on the team at all last year. So hopefully it works out in that hypothetical scenario. But for right now, if I'm the Saints, we're good.
Yeah, you know.
I hate that, by the way.
I know. Leonard Fournette, New Orleans legend, an LSU legend. I mean, I was in college at the same time as him. That Auburn game you mentioned where he was literally throwing people over his shoulder like they're children. I was at that game in the student section just vibing. You know, Leonard Fournette made a lot of LSU football games fun during a time where they weren't necessarily winning national championships, you know, during a time where their offense was essentially give the ball to Leonard Fournette and get out the way. So, you know, shout out to Leonard Fournette. I love Leonard Fournette as a player, but as a New Orleans Saint, I don't love it right now. Like you said, you know, I don't think Leonard Fournette helps you in the situation that you're in right now because the Saints are in a situation where they already have a running back from the 2017 class.
They do, right.
You already got one 30-year-old running back in Alvin Kamara. You don't need to bring in another one, but you do have 2 guys in their early 20s, in Kendre Miller and Devin Neal. And with Alvin Kamara's days numbered, I mean, realistically, I think you can expect maybe a year or 2 of, we both called Alvin Kamara a top 10 player. Yeah. A year or 2 more of top 10 production from Alvin Kamara before you really have to look at the future of this running back position, and you've got to figure out, is Kendre Miller going to be able to be available long enough to consistently give you the flashes that he's shown? Is Devin Neal, you know, going to be able to showcase some of the versatility that we saw from him in college? In order to see that, we need for both of them to get reps with, you know, right now we're in OTAs, when we get into minicamp, when we get into training camp, when we get into preseason. Those are the guys who we need getting reps because I don't expect Alvin Kamara to play a lot during that time. He's a veteran, you know, so I need to see what we have in Kendre Miller. I need to see what we have in Devin Neal. Now, in a different scenario, if the Saints are in the position of, say, the Buffalo Bills, say the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles, where you know this year, as long as someone doesn't get hurt catastrophically, we will be contending and we are making win-now moves. Maybe Leonard Fournette, you know, a big, stocky power back, someone with a skill set that you don't necessarily have on the team right now. Maybe he could help you if you're trying to win this year, but 99% of Saints fans would probably agree they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. This is about building for the years to come. This is about seeing, can Tyler Shuck play or can Spencer Rattler play? What do we have in Devin Neal? What do we have in Kendre Miller? You know, the offensive line that they've invested so many young players in. Can we get a cohesive unit up front? You know, we're trying to see what these young guys can do. We're trying to build the foundation for something special. And if you're trying to build that foundation, I don't think that Leonard Fournette would necessarily help it right now.
And realistically, given the career trajectory and where, you know, I think the last year he played, he averaged 3.5 yards a carry in the last full season, 2022. What could he realistically give you right now? To me, he can be a short yardage guy.
But Jamal Williams was giving you down here?
There's no probably. He would be an upgrade over Jamal Williams.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, that's not saying a whole lot. I mean, like Jamal Williams is one of the bigger disappointments in the last, say, half decade to a decade for the Saints. I thought he was going to be so much better when he was here. It didn't happen. Realistically, what can Fournette give you? I mean, he's a guy that I think can, you know, short yardage, red zone type guy. I think he can give you, but he's not going to be the bell cow guy he once was. And at his best, I mean, he was a guy, give him the rock 25 times a game, let him do his thing. I just don't think he'll ever have that opportunity again in the NFL. But I do think he's a guy, if he stays in shape and there's one of these playoff run teams, or maybe even the Saints, who knows, that it happens all the time. You know, you need somebody. That's the nature of the NFL. It's the only league like that where you got to get somebody, frankly, that's been on the street. Yeah. And you could do a lot worse than Leonard Fournette if he's on the street waiting for a phone call. So wish him all the best. Hope it works out. If it works out here, great. But I think right now, and honestly, if you're Leonard, do you really need to be in training camp right now? I mean, do you really want to be in a training camp right now? Right. I think the Saints are pretty good. And that is that is a good transition into where we wanted to go with our Saints topic today. We had the Leonard Fournette as a big picture because, frankly, it's Leonard Fournette and he's worth the topic of discussion. But in regards to Leonard Fournette and the position he plays, we wanted to talk about the Saints' current run game situation as our next topic here today. Yeah,
you know, as we look at, you know, the Saints who right now we're not bringing in Leonard Fournette, you got to look at the guys on the roster. We mentioned them earlier, Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Devin Neal. You could throw Velus Jones Jr. in there. So looking at the Saints running back room right now, Sean, will their run game be a strength this season?
I love this topic. I love this question because I think it's actually a pretty direct answer. Will the Saints' run game be a strength this season? The answer to that question is simply this. It better be. It ain't optional. They have no choice. At least if they want to be competent on that side of the ball with a new, young offensive coach, you know he's going to want to be. He does not want to have an ugly offense. He does not want to have a bad offense. He wants to have an offense that can do things because that's what these guys want to do. And that's what he was hired here to do. Just look at the current makeup of the personnel. You mentioned it. Assuming there aren't many major developments or adjustments to the QB room or the receiver room, that feels like, just on the surface, watching. Maybe they're ahead of the curve, maybe they're not. But at least early on, the passing game, to me, is going to be a work in progress. It's going to be a work in progress, and that's going to be difficult to overcome. How do you do that? Well, you have a strong run game. Contrast that wide receiver quarterback room with the backs. Best player on the team, he's in that room. Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal, draft pick, Kendre Miller. Got a clean slate, but we keep waiting for it to happen. We keep waiting for the light bulb to come on. Velus Jones Jr., he's in the room. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another LSU guy, kind of flown under the radar a little bit. So it's not like they don't have any LSU running backs at this time. And as far as we know, we haven't heard anything different, but you got to factor in the Swiss Army knife, that is Taysom Hill, whose best asset, regardless of age and other abilities, is simply taking a snap and running a ball. We've seen that, and he takes over games. It's a very unique asset to certainly have. If you're the Saints or with the Saints, we've seen it since he's been here. As far as we know, he's going to still be here. So, but it's not just the running backs. It's not just the running backs. There's 4 first-round picks up front and 1 second-round pick up front, all on the offensive line. Early on, the offensive line, regardless of backs, receivers, quarterbacks, that has to be the strength of the team, if not the biggest strength on the team, but certainly the biggest strength on the Saints offense. They absolutely should lean on these guys, on the big uglies up front, and where they can be dominant or at least really good will be in the run game. We look at the skill sets of where each guy is playing and what is currently available on the outside of them. I think that's where they could be. If they're going to be dominant anywhere, I think this is the spot it's going to be dominant, at least on the offensive side of the ball this season. Now, a quick check of Kellen Moore's history shows a significant commitment and production when it comes to this aspect of the game. 2019 to 2024, so 6 seasons with Moore as an offensive coordinator in Dallas, LA, and obviously Philly last year. 4 top 10 finishes when it comes to running the football. 4 top 10 rushing offenses. Second last year with Philly, 9th in 2022 and 2021 with the Cowboys, and 2019, 5th with the Cowboys. 2 outside the top 10, 23 Chargers. That was ugly, 25th. That was his worst showing. In 2020 in Dallas, they were ranked 17th in rushing the football. So I believe the Saints' run game will be the strength of the offense because, frankly, they have no other choice right now. It has to be. By the way, if you were wondering about last year with the Kubiak scheme, Saints were 14th in the NFL in running the football last year. So can they be better than 14th? I think they should be better than 14th this year.
You know, if they're not, Sean, they're in a whole lot of trouble. I'll tell you that because, you know, is running the ball going to be a strength? It needs to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think passing the ball is going to be a strength, whether you're a member of the Rat Pack or
the
whether
Shuck
you're,
crew.
you're ready for the Shuck Show, no matter who you're supporting as your starting quarterback going forward. Neither of them are going to step in under center and throw for 4,500 and 40 touchdowns this year. I don't think that's going to happen no matter who starts at quarterback. You're going to be starting a rookie or a second-year player who's only started 6 games and played in 7 and hasn't won any of them. So no matter who you're starting, a quarterback's best friend is a good running game. To complement that quarterback, to help that quarterback along in their development, once again, no matter who it is, you need a consistent running game, and you've got the players to do it. I mean, we both said the other day, we still believe Alvin Kamara is a top 10 running back. Kendre Miller, a guy who you, a third-round pick in a few years ago?
Yeah.
He's shown the flashes. He just needs to stay on the field long enough to be able to do it consistently. Devin Neal, kind of a steal in the 5th round, and somebody who I'm really very excited to see. You know, and you mentioned Kellen Moore's top 10 finishes. It's interesting also, if you look at the past for the Saints, from 2017 to 2020, they were in the top 10 in rushing 3 out of those 4 years. And in all 3 of those years, winning seasons. 2017, they were 6th, they finished 11-5. 2018, they were 9th, finished 13-3. 2020, they were 7th, they finished 12-4. Since 2020, they've kind of been middle of the pack, 16th, 19th, 21st, 14th. And those records, 9-8, 7-10, 9-8, 5-12. Not hard to see the correlation there when the Saints are able to run the ball consistently. Even with Drew Brees, you know, the greatest Saints quarterback of all time, one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game behind center, when you have a run game complementing him, it makes it a lot easier for the Saints to win games. So that's the case with Brees. You take it to Shuck and Rattler, yes, you're going to need somebody to run the ball. You're going to need it to make things easier on them. You're going to need it, especially with Rattler. One of the things we saw a lot from Rattler last season, that play action, working the play action and rolling out. If you averaging 2 yards a carry, ain't nobody worried about the play action, you know? You've got to be able to sell it. So, yeah, I think, plus, I don't think the Saints are built to get in shootouts with teams next year. If Shuck or Rattler has to throw the ball 40 times in a game, you're probably losing that game. When you run the ball, you also control the pace of the game. You control the possessions in the game. I want the starting quarterback to maybe have to throw 18 passes in comparison to 35, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And to do that, once again, it all goes back to the run game. So will the Saints' run game be a strength this season? I think it has to be, and I think they've got the roster and the talent to where it should be.
If no other reason, all that investment along the offensive line, that's where it should show up the most, in my opinion. Their ability to run the football, because you can have a great offensive line and get great pass protection, but if you got a rookie quarterback that's not quite seeing it right, and he's taking some time to adjust, or if you don't have elite wide receivers. You can have a great offensive line, but it's kind of all for naught at that point. But where that offensive line investment can really show up, especially with the current version of New Orleans Saints, is basically if they're able to effectively run the football despite some of the challenge in other spots, because I feel like that's where they're going to be the strongest. And it's also this, it's no secret. I don't think it's going to be a secret to teams. Oh, the Saints are going to try to run the football. So the Saints being good at the run game is going to be interesting because I think they have to be, but they're also going to probably have to deal with teams knowing they have to be. Thus, what are they going to do? They're going to try to make it hard and make the young quarterbacks and obviously the receivers beat them. So can you still do that despite teams trying to take that away? And as the season goes on, the hope is the passing game catches up. The best case scenario is the passing game is ahead of the curve, and all of a sudden you can run that nice RPO game that he wants to run. You can run play action that they want to run, and all of a sudden they're doing good things, and perhaps they're a more competent offense quicker than we thought. But I think it all starts with the run game, because if you just look at the Saints offense, and what I like about Kellen Moore is his ability to adapt and how he doesn't really have a clear cut like, I want to run this all the time. This is my way because of the diversity of the offenses that he's coached. But when he knows he's got despite him being a quarterback, a very good one at the collegiate level, a very good one that won a lot of games and passed the ball a lot, he is okay with saying, if I got to be the dead last in the NFL in pass attempts, but that's the best chance, gives us the best chance to win, I'm okay doing that. So I actually like that about Kellen Moore. But it's going to be an interesting push-pull, an interesting dynamic because you're the Saints, or you're the Saints' opponent, and you're lined up, you're doing a scout report. Who am I taking away? Who am I taking away? So if you're the Saints' offensive line and all that investment, well, you got to take that as a challenge, and that's where you got to be the strength on the team.
Absolutely, and I keep bringing up these guys' names, but I think the emergence of a Kendre Miller and of Devin Neal, that's what's really gonna, take this to the next level. Because I remember we were talking not this past season, but the year before, when Alvin Kamara was taking like 25 touches, 30 touches, 29 touches, every game. And we were like, there's no way he'll survive the season. He's not going to make it through the season taking that many hits and getting that many touches at his age. Now he's going to be 30. If the Saints are going to be a run-heavy team, you still can't give Alvin Kamara 25 touches a game. It's great for fantasy football, but with Alvin Kamara being the age that he's going to be, you can't have his body taking those hits, which means I probably want AK touching the ball somewhere between 15 and 20 times, which means that you're going to need Kendre Miller, you're going to need Devin Neal, you're going to need Taysom Hill. Those three guys have to combine for at least, to me, 15 touches a game.
And, we just talked about Leonard Fournette. I mean, Alvin's not built like Leonard Fournette.
He's not.
Yeah, and those 17 to 20, 2017 to 2020, those years where they were top 10, 3 out of those 4 years? Yeah, Alvin Kamara was the guy, but go back and check the actual snaps. He did not lead the team in snaps. He played something like 48 to 52% of the snaps. And then sometimes he caught the ball, sometimes he carried the ball, sometimes he was on the field, didn't touch the ball at all. And who did he always have? He had Mark Ingram, he had Latavius Murray, he had Taysom Hill, he had Ingram again. So you do need the emergence of a second back, but that has been the case for the last couple seasons, and that really has been a huge disappointment because the previous regime wanted it. I mean, they drafted Kendre Miller. They thought Jamal Williams had some life left, and it's been bust so far. So I think that's a good point. I mean, someone has to emerge, and if you're like a guy like Devin Neal or even the undrafted guy, Marcus Yarns is another guy that's starting to show a little bit, nothing crazy, but starting to show a little bit. There's an opportunity. And then, again, we don't know the timeline of Taysom Hill. It's been pretty. They haven't really revealed too much. They've been pretty vague about it. But you have that hammer that you can turn to, and we've seen it. We've witnessed it where you're just like, just get out of Seven's way, let him do his thing. He could take over a game. He'll have 2 or 3 games a season like that. That's such an asset to have if he's available. So all those factors lead to this. To me, I want to see a top 10 rushing offense this year for the Saints.
Yeah, I would expect a top 10 offense from the Saints. Now, the only thing that would deter that is the fact that it's hard to run the ball when you're down 20. You know, if the Saints do get in a position where they're falling behind in games early because, you know, they're starting a rookie or they're starting a second-year quarterback, and all of a sudden it's the end of the first quarter and you look up and it's 14-3, you're going to have to pass the ball more, which to me, you've got to establish that early on. First quarter, you have to establish that running game, because if you don't, things can get out of hand really quick. And you mentioned some of the names. The Saints have been great at, you know, kind of bringing these running backs out of nowhere and getting great production out of them. We saw it with Pierre Thomas. We saw it with Chris Ivory. We saw it with Latavius Murray. I don't want to say Darren Sproles came out of nowhere, but Darren Sproles wasn't necessarily the number one back, but Darren Sproles gave you huge production, you know. So having a second running back, being able to establish the run early, being able to, you know, maybe pound Kendre Miller up the middle, and that opens things up for you to now be more creative with Alvin Kamara in the passing game as well. That's what this offense is going to have to lean on.
And then it really goes back to, all right, is your right five in play up front?
Yeah.
Because if, like we said, the potential game changer is Penning at left guard, where he's not just good, but he's elite, or he's really, really, really good at left guard, which obviously that's going to show up in the ground game. That's going to show up in the run game. So all these little things that are kind of interconnected that could make a difference when it comes to the Saints run game, but we both agree Saints got to run the ball in 2025, and especially if they want to be a little ahead of schedule, especially if they don't want to accept the fact that they're going to win 4 games this year. They want to win more than that. I think that's going to have to be a big part of the formula going forward. I can think back to 06, the year no one expected to do anything. Our guy, Deuce, was a 1,000-yard guy. They also had Reggie Bush. So if you want success early, I think I don't see a path any other way unless Rattler takes the huge leap, or Tyler Shuck is ready to step on day one as a rookie and just be the gunslinger throwing it all over the yard, which I don't know if that's something to really count on. That's a lot to ask. So, all right, well, wow, we're already out of time here. Okay, well, tomorrow, Saints OTAs will both be there. It should be fun. We'll have a podcast tomorrow, so check that out. The last one before minicamp next week. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.